Today we're going to be going over data inferences questions. While these are only worth 5 points on your average SAT, they're sometimes weighted more heavily, so make sure you know this one. So our approach to these is going to be to identify data inferences problems. We're going to break down the question. We're going to build a formula to solve data inferences problems, and we're going to solve a practice question. So how do you identify this concept? Well, these questions will ask you to infer about data. So they're going to give you some data set and they're going to ask you an inference about it. And they'll often ask about margin of error and the mean. And so they'll do some experiment, they'll have a mean, they'll have a margin of error, and you'll have to interpret it. So here's the formula we're going to use for data inferences. Step 1, we're going to understand what the question is asking. Step number 2, we're going to apply the appropriate statistical method. And step number 3, we're going to choose the option that correctly uses your statistical method. So here's our question. With step number 1, we're going to understand the question. So it reads, a school administrator surveyed a random sample of students about their daily study time. Based on responses, the estimated mean was found to be 2.8 hours with an associated margin of error of 0.3 hours. Which of the following is the best conclusion from this data? Okay, step number 2, we're going to think about our statistical method, which in this case is the margin of error. And so I'm going to write down what this means to me. So our experiment told us 2.8 is going to be what we think the mean is, but we have this margin of error of 0.3 hours, so we think it could be up to 3.1 hours or down to 2.5 hours. So we generally think that between 2.5 and 3.1 is where our true mean lies for the amount of time studying. So now we're going to look at the answer choices, with choice number A saying it is likely all students study between 2.5 and 3.1 hours. Well, we're not looking for what all students study between, we're looking for the mean, so the average of all students. And so this one is doing too much. It's not going to be every student, it's just the average of all of our students. Choice number B, it's likely that most students study exactly 2.8 hours. Well, that's not what a mean is. A mean is just an average of all the students, but not exactly that most students study 2.8 hours, so that one's also going to be incorrect. Choice number C, it is not possible that any student studies less than 2 hours. Well, we actually couldn't know this because our mean is 2.8, but it's definitely possible that a student could study for less than 2 hours, and so this one cannot be true. And then D, it is plausible that the mean study time for all students is between 2.5 and 3.1 hours. So this one is actually exactly how we were describing it up here, that it is plausible that our actual mean for our population of students is going to be between 2.5 and 3.1 hours. So D is correct here.